Hello, I'm Susan Stevenson. I'm the music teacher at West Chatham Elementary School, and I'm here to talk to you about one of my favorite styles of music, jazz. If you have been to a Musical Explorers concert before, there's a good chance that you have heard jazz music. Let's look and learn today about jazz. In this lesson, you're going to find out what jazz is and where it originated. You're going to learn about the instruments that are used in jazz, and you're going to learn some jazz terminology. We're going to talk about Duke Ellington today, one of my favorite jazz composers. We're going to listen to him, take a little trip back in time, and then I'm going to show you how you can complete a listening map at home to show what you heard. We will end our presentation today with one of my favorite books about Duke Ellington. So let's get started. Our I can statement for this lesson is, I can listen to and describe music. I often tell my students, when I ask you to describe music, just saying I like it or I don't like it is not describing it. That's giving me your opinion. Yes, I liked it. No, I didn't. When you describe music, you're going to tell me, what instruments did you hear? Were there voices or just instruments? Was the tempo fast or slow? Were the dynamics loud or soft? Was the pitch high or low? You're going to use musical words to describe music. And here are all of the Georgia standards that we're going to cover. Standard 6 tells me that I need to listen to music. And we will. I need to learn and use music vocabulary. Did you hear me say tempo, pitch, dynamics? My 4th and 5th graders, your listening map is going to expect that you know those things. We're going to identify instruments, and then we're going to evaluate music. That's where your opinion comes in. Is it any good? Do you like it? And we're also going to talk a little bit about Standard 9, where it says, how does music fit in with our history and culture? Because you see, jazz music is the first type of music that is truly American. We started it, and I think we've mastered it. Jazz started in New Orleans in the late 19th and early 20th century. It came out of blues and ragtime music. I don't know if you've ever been to New Orleans or not. I have, and one of my favorite things is that when you're walking down the street, all of the businesses have their doors open and they have jazz bands inside playing music. There are lots of instruments used in jazz. The horns play the melody. Now, when I say the word horns, I mean things like the saxophone, the trumpet, the trombone. Sometimes a clarinet is in jazz music too. It's not a horn, but it often plays the melody. And then the piano, and not the bass drums, but the string bass play the rhythm. I want to talk to you for just a couple of minutes about Duke Ellington. You'll hear a story about him at the end, but Duke Ellington is an American composer. He's a pianist, and he was the leader of a jazz orchestra for over 6 decades. Duke Ellington was born in Washington, D.C. He was raised in a household where his parents loved music, but Duke didn't want to take piano lessons. In fact, it says as a boy he loved baseball more than he loved music. He loved music, but he would often sneak out the window and go to play baseball when he was supposed to be practicing the piano. But once Duke got bit by the music bug, you're going to see in our story that he went and listened to music wherever he could. He started out in Washington, D.C. when he was a grown-up with a band called the Washingtonians. They got discovered, as you might say, and in 1927, he and his band moved to Harlem because they were the house band at the Cotton Club. If you look at the pictures, you see Duke at different stages of his life. In the middle of the screen, you see a young Duke when he was just starting out. On the right, a little bit older, and on the left, you see him with his band. Let's listen to Duke Ellington. But in order to do that, I hope you're ready to time travel because we're going to go back to 1943 and listen to Duke Ellington as they play It Don't Mean a Thing.
Don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. It don't mean a thing, all you gotta do is swing. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm every little thing you've got. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing.
Could you pick out Duke Ellington in that clip? He was the one at the piano. Did you notice the horn players? It looked like they had the end of a plunger, and they would stick it in their horn. That's called a mute. That's what made the instrument have its very silly sound. Now, if you're a musical explorer, you know what scat singing is. In fact, you might have heard Audrey do some scat singing in Blue Skies. Well, in Duke Ellington's It Don't Mean a Thing, if you heard the doo-wah, doo-wah, there was some scat singing involved. Now, we can create some listening maps to go along with what you just heard. Your music teacher might have asked you to do this in school. And if you notice, it's broken down into 3 different maps. So we're going to go to the first map, and bear with me. Let's go this way. It'll take just a minute for my Weebly page to load, and hopefully I'll be able to show you the listening map for this lesson. If you're in kindergarten or first grade, you probably can't write too much about what you're listening to. Here we go. So if you're in kindergarten or first grade and you look at this, all it says at the top is listening to music. The music makes me feel, And you can draw a picture of yourself, and you can see how you felt. Now, if you're a little bit older, like second and third grade, on this listening map, you could put the title and the composer's name. The title of the song was It Don't Mean a Thing, and the composer was Duke Ellington. And then you could start describing the music. How did the music make you feel? You could draw your face and show me. Over here where it says I heard, you could add some words. You could describe the music that you heard. You could say if you heard voices. You could say if the music was fast or slow, high or low. And it had in it a swing rhythm, which is very much like jazz. I have lots of different maps, but I want to show you one that would work for older students. For an older student, I would expect you to know a few more things. You would put, It Don't Mean a Thing, the composer, Duke Ellington, and then as you're listening, you could circle the instruments you heard. Then you could answer what the tempo is. Now, let me ask you a question. Is there only one tempo, or does it change? It can change in the song, or it can stay the same. Just like dynamics. Were they soft? Were they loud? Did they get louder? You could have several answers circled there. And then the style. Well, I think we all know what to choose there. And talk about the melody. And in that song, it definitely went up and down. And then at the bottom, you could add some other things that you noticed. So there are lots of ways. You could also just draw a picture of how the music made you feel and write a few sentences describing it. Now, after you create your listening map, you might want to take a picture of it and send it to your music teacher. I am sure that your music teacher would love to know that you listened to Duke Ellington and you created a listening map. Now, here are some things that we've talked about in jazz. We've learned what jazz is, and I hope that you remember that jazz is an American type of music. And in Duke Ellington's clip, you saw more than just the few instruments we talked about. We learned a little bit about him, and we created some listening maps. But right now, I want you to learn even more about Duke Ellington. So let's listen to our story about Duke Ellington. And actually, boys and girls, I don't have that story in my slide progression. So I would encourage you to go to YouTube, and there you can download the story about Duke Ellington. Thank you so much for listening to my lesson on jazz. I hope to see you again soon.